The story about the poor jazz pianist. Once upon a time, in a bustling city, there was a jazz pianist named Ivory. He had always been passionate about music and spent most of his days practicing for at least 6 hours a day, honing his skills and perfecting his craft. Despite his dedication and hard work, Ivory never managed to achieve the level of success he had hoped for. He played in small clubs and bars, struggling to make ends meet and never quite breaking into the mainstream music industry. In this world, on the planet Earth, fame and fortune seem to be reserved for athletes and other celebrities, leaving artists like Ivory to struggle and go unnoticed. While tennis players and other sports stars were showered with money and adoration, artists like Ivory were often overlooked and undervalued. Despite this, Ivory never gave up on his passion for music. He continued to play and practice, pouring his heart and soul into each and every note he played. He found joy and fulfillment in his art, even if it never brought him fame or fortune. As he grew older, Ivory's health began to decline, but he never stopped playing. He continued to practice and perform, even as his body weakened and his finances dwindled. Finally, after a long and fulfilling life, Ivory passed away, leaving behind a legacy of beautiful music and a reminder that true passion and dedication cannot be measured in fame or wealth. Though he died poor, he had lived a rich and meaningful life, filled with the joy of music and the love of those who appreciated his talent. And even though the world may never truly appreciate the value of artists like Ivory, his music will continue to live on, a testament to the beauty and power of the human spirit. Ivory had always been drawn to music. From a young age, he had a natural talent for the piano, and his parents recognized this early on. They enrolled him in piano lessons, and Ivory quickly fell in love with the instrument. As he grew older, Ivory's passion for music only intensified. He spent every spare moment practicing, pouring his heart and soul into each and every note he played. He knew that if he wanted to succeed as a musician, he would have to work harder than anyone else. And so he did. Ivory spent 6 hours a day practicing, often more. He devoured every book on music theory and composition he could get his hands on, learning everything he could about the art of jazz. As Ivory got older, he started playing in small clubs and bars, honing his skills in front of live audiences. He was well received by those who saw him play, but he struggled to make a name for himself in the competitive world of music. It seemed that no matter how hard Ivory worked, he couldn't catch a break. He watched as less talented musicians rose to fame and fortune, while he remained stuck in obscurity. And yet, Ivory never gave up. He continued to practice and perform, pouring his heart and soul into each and every note he played. He knew that he was destined for greatness, and he refused to let anyone tell him otherwise. But as time went on, Ivory's health began to decline. His hands grew stiff and sore from years of playing the piano, and he started to develop a persistent cough that wouldn't go away. Despite this, Ivory refused to slow down. He continued to play and perform, even as his body weakened and his finances dwindled. It wasn't until he collapsed on stage one night that Ivory finally realized he couldn't keep going. He was rushed to the hospital, where he was diagnosed with a rare form of lung cancer. Ivory was devastated. He had always dreamed of a long and successful career in music, but now it seemed that his time was running out. As he lay in his hospital bed, Ivory thought about all the hours he had spent practicing, all the gigs he had played, all the dreams he had chased. And yet, despite all his hard work, he had never achieved the success he had hoped for. It wasn't fair, Ivory thought. Why did athletes and other celebrities get all the fame and fortune, while artists like him struggled and died in obscurity? But then, as Ivory lay there, something began to shift inside of him. He realized that while he may not have achieved fame and fortune, he had achieved something far more important. He had lived a life filled with passion and purpose. He had poured his heart and soul into his music, and in doing so, he had touched the lives of countless others. As Ivory's health continued to decline, he knew that his time was running out. But he also knew that he had left his mark on the world, that his music would live on long after he was gone. And so he closed his eyes, content in the knowledge that he had lived a life filled with beauty and meaning, that he had pursued his passion to the very end. In the end, Ivory died poor, but he died rich in the things that truly matter. He died with a legacy of music that would continue to inspire and uplift others for generations to come. And he died knowing that, no matter what the world may say, his life had been a true success. After Ivory's passing, the music world was never quite the same. Many musicians and fans alike mourned his loss, recognizing the incredible talent and dedication he had brought to the art of jazz. In the months following his death, Ivory's music began to gain traction. People who had never heard of him before started to listen to his recordings and attend tribute concerts in his honor. They were moved by the passion and beauty of his music, and many were inspired to pick up an instrument themselves and start playing. As Ivory's fame grew, so too did his influence on the music world. Jazz musicians everywhere began to cite him as a major influence, and his style of playing became a defining feature of the genre. And while Ivory never got to experience the full extent of his fame and success, his memory lived on in the hearts of those who had been touched by his music. For years to come, people would speak of Ivory in reverent tones, as a true master of the piano and a passionate champion of jazz. His legacy would continue to inspire and uplift others, proving that even in a world where fame and fortune seemed reserved for the lucky few, true talent and dedication could still shine through. As Ivory's music gained popularity, people began to take notice of the challenges that musicians like him faced in a world that often favored athletes and other celebrities. Many started to question why musicians and artists were not given the same recognition and financial compensation as those in other professions. In response to this growing concern, a number of organizations and initiatives sprang up to support struggling musicians and artists. Foundations were established to provide financial support and resources to up-and-coming musicians, and advocacy groups worked to raise awareness of the unique challenges that artists face in the modern world. And as the music world continued to evolve, it became clear that Ivory's legacy would play a major role in shaping its future. His dedication and passion for jazz had helped to define the genre, and his influence would continue to be felt for years to come. In the end, Ivory's life had proven that true success was not measured in fame or fortune, but in the pursuit of one's passions and the impact one could have on the world. He had lived a life filled with purpose and meaning, and his legacy would continue to inspire others for generations to come. And so the memory of Ivory lived on, a testament to the power of music and the indomitable spirit of those who pursue their dreams with unyielding determination. As time passed, Ivory's story became something of a legend in the music world. People would tell tales of his incredible talent and his unwavering dedication to his craft, and his name became synonymous with the very best that jazz had to offer. And while Ivory had never sought fame or fortune for himself, his legacy had brought about a major shift in the way that society viewed musicians and artists. People began to recognize the value of the arts, not just as a form of entertainment, but as a vital component of culture and society. As a result, funding for the arts increased, and musicians and artists were given greater recognition and financial support for their work. It was no longer seen as a given that athletes and other celebrities were more deserving of attention and praise than those who dedicated their lives to the arts. And while Ivory may have never lived to see this change come about, his influence on the world of music had been nothing short of profound. He had shown that even in a world that often seemed to favor the rich and famous, true talent and dedication could still shine through. And so his name would live on, a symbol of the power of music and the enduring legacy of those who had dedicated their lives to it. Ivory may have died poor, but his impact on the world of jazz and beyond would never be forgotten. Years after Ivory's passing, a group of musicians and fans came together to establish a foundation in his name. The Ivory Foundation for the Arts was founded with the mission of supporting aspiring musicians and artists, providing them with the resources they needed to pursue their dreams. Through the foundation, scholarships were established, instruments were donated to underprivileged schools, and concerts were organized to showcase the talents of up-and-coming musicians. the foundation quickly became a major force in the world of music, and its work touched the lives of countless people around the world. And as the years passed, Ivory's influence continued to be felt. His recordings continued to sell, his compositions continued to be studied and performed, and his legacy continued to inspire new generations of musicians and artists. In recognition of his immense contributions to the world of music, Ivory was posthumously inducted into the Jazz Hall of Fame. It was a fitting tribute to a man who had dedicated his life to the pursuit of excellence in his art. And as people reflected on Ivory's life and legacy, they realized that he had not died poor at all. Though he may not have accumulated great wealth or fame during his lifetime, Ivory had left behind a gift that was far more valuable: his music, and the impact it had on the world. In the end, Ivory's life had shown that success was not measured in the size of one's bank account or the number of fans one had, but in the impact one had on the world around them. Ivory had lived his life with purpose and passion, and his legacy would continue to inspire others to do the same for generations to come. As the Ivory Foundation for the Arts grew in size and influence, it attracted the attention of some of the biggest names in the music industry. Musicians and music executives alike began to take note of the incredible work being done in Ivory's name, and they were eager to lend their support to the cause. Funding poured in from all directions, allowing the foundation to expand its programs and reach even more aspiring musicians and artists. The scholarships grew larger, the instrument donations more frequent, and the concerts more spectacular. And as the years passed, the Ivory Foundation became one of the most respected and well-regarded institutions in the music world. It was known not only for the financial support it provided to aspiring artists, but for the sense of community and belonging it fostered among those who shared a passion for music. And Ivory's music continued to be heard around the world, played by musicians young and old, experienced and novice. His compositions had become classics of the jazz genre, and his recordings continued to sell in record numbers. In the end, Ivory's life had left an indelible mark on the world of music and beyond. His legacy had inspired countless musicians and artists to pursue their passions with unyielding dedication, and had shown that true success was not measured in fame or fortune, but in the impact one had on the world around them. And so the story of Ivory came to a close, a tale of perseverance, dedication, and the enduring power of music to inspire and unite us all. Thanks for watching. Please consider subscribing.